Good morning, and welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Salt Lake City. I'm the Reverend Monica Dobbins, the assistant minister of this congregation, and I give thanks for every face that I see here today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for this congregation, and thank you especially, choir. I'd like to open in a little different way today by honoring a member of our congregation who has done something really extraordinary. The American Unitarian Association and the Universalist Church of America joined forces in 1961 to become the Unitarian Universalist Association. And since the very beginning, the youth of our faith have been there, shaping policy, bearing witness, and carrying the chalice flame into the future. The living tradition of our faith depends on courageous leaders who know our faith from the inside out, who love it because it was given to them as children, and who welcome new people into the faith that they have inherited from those who came before. When the UUA looks for emerging youth leaders, they call upon those who are trained and tested. Those emerging leaders are called luminary leaders, and we have one such luminary in our congregation, Asha Pruitt. Asha, I'd like for you to come on forward as I tell them a little about what you've done. Asha is not only a leader in our youth group in this congregation, she has also completed training to be a youth leader and is now a luminary leader of the UUA. Asha, we are so proud of this designation that you have earned, and we can't wait to see what service you provide to our faith in the years to come. Congratulations. I'd like to invite Asha to come up and share a reading with us and light our chalice this morning. Oh boy, I broke the match.
Okay, so this is called Thanks by W.S. Merwin. Listen. With the nights falling, we are saying thank you. We are stopping on the bridges to bow from the railings. We are running out from the glass rooms with our mouths full of food to look at the sky and say thank you. We are standing by the water thanking it, standing by the windows looking out in our directions. Back from a series of hospitals, back from a mugging after funerals, we are saying thank you after the news of the dead. Whether or not we know them, we are saying thank you. Over telephones, we are saying thank you. In doorways and in the backs of cars and in elevators, remembering the wars and the police at the door and the beatings on stairs, we are saying thank you. In the banks, we are saying thank you. In the faces of the officials and the rich, and of all who will never change, we go on saying thank you, thank you. With the animals dying around us, taking our feelings, we are saying thank you. With the forests falling faster than the minutes of our lives, we are saying thank you. With the words going out like cells of a brain, with the cities growing over us, we are saying thank you faster and faster. With nobody listening, we are saying thank you. Thank you, we are saying and waving, dark though it is. Thank you.
Thank you for those words, Asha. And now I invite you to rise in body or in spirit, and let us sing together our opening hymn, number 128. In a warm space that shields us from the blustery cold outdoors, we gather to relish the sweetness of life. There is a time to break down, to mourn, to weep, but today we claim a time for gathering stones together. We let the sad things of life settle down into the riverbed, and we gaze into the clear water of our gratitude, seeing life for what it really is, one long, loud song of gladness. With our whole heart do we praise you, O life. Let every word be hallelujah. Let every bite of food fill us forever. Let us lift our glasses to love everlasting. There may yet be dark days ahead, but the spark of divinity in every heart will light our way. For this, we give thanks in silence. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and to make our own days glad. Amen.
Well, good morning. It's my pleasure to share a reading this morning from an old buddy of mine, old colleague, Ed Lynn. Go back to New England days of long ago. And Ed, and I say this even though he's my friend, was probably the least spiritual person I've ever known in my life. And he would say, yeah, I'm proud of that. Under the umbrella of humanism, and there's so many different kinds of humanism, he would probably be best put in the category of abrasive humanism. Scientific method, that was it. Didn't cut mustard, see you later. Until something's changed. Something changed for Ed. And here's the story of what has changed for him. The tree fell on the back seat of my moving car with such force that it broke the rear axle and shattered every window. The crack as it snapped was so loud that even families warm inside their homes heard it and came running out into the cold. The car skidded to a halt, and very quickly people were yelling at me, "Are you all right? Can you get out?" Within 5 minutes, 2 police cruisers and a fire truck arrived. No ambulance came because the November storm had created such dangerous driving conditions that they had been called to other accidents. One of the firemen took my blood pressure, which was high and irregular. He asked if I wanted to go to the hospital. Despite my heart's pounding with the excitement of flashing lights and cars in every direction stopped by the tree across both lanes of the road, I declined. I didn't feel I needed a doctor. I had only a few cuts on the top of my head from the collapse of the car roof. That was all. How delicate our human bodies are in contrast to the strength of a large tree. Having carried large pieces of lumber, I know how dense and heavy wood really is. The tree that fell on my car could have hit the hood or the windshield. If it had fallen 1 second earlier, it would have landed directly on the front seat and my head. Instead, I walked away unscathed. Now, I know it might have been otherwise. As Jane Kenyon articulates in her poem called Otherwise, which she wrote after being diagnosed with terminal cancer. She says, "I got out of bed on 2 strong legs. It might have been otherwise. I ate cereal, sweet milk, ripe, flawless peach. It might have been otherwise. I took the dog uphill to the birchwood. All morning, I did the work I love. But one day, I know, it will be otherwise." In my almost otherwise encounter with that tree, I experienced something akin to the feelings reported by people who have a near-death experience, a changed understanding of what life is all about. I sustained what I call a near-life experience, a deeper understanding of how sacred life is. I came to fully appreciate how fragile we human beings are, and I felt a profound sense of gratitude. My gratitude was more than an awareness of successes or bounty. It was a feeling that went to the core of my being. It was a sense of fundamental appreciation for my time here on earth and for the basic elements of my life: breath, health, love, joy, inner peace. What I experienced was a deep sense of spiritual gratitude. We all need reminders of life's mystery and preciousness. We don't often enough take a few moments to reflect with gratitude on the blessings of the day. Occasionally, to reflect on my being here, I stop at the spot where the tree fell. And I also have kept as a reminder a General Motors advertisement that my wife cut out of a magazine, a picture of trees and the line, If a tree falls on your car in the forest, does anyone hear it? Each day now, seeing the picture, I'm reminded of my good fortune in being alive. For each of us, visual reminders, such as photographs of loved ones, a lit candle, a special object, a freshly cut flower, can be a daily source of beauty and thankfulness. I have adopted the spiritual practice of saying, upon awakening each morning, a short prayer beginning with the words of Winslow Homer. The sun will not rise or set without my notice or thanks. And I add, I'm blessed to be here. May I appreciate this day. Near the conclusion of Thornton Wilder's drama, Our Town, Simon Stimson, who is dead, speaks to young Emily, who is dead, Emily wants to return to earth. He says, yes, now you know. Now you know. And that's what it was to be alive, to move about in a cloud of ignorance, to spend and waste time as though you had 1,000,000 years. Upon recognizing that she cannot return to earth, Emily says, I didn't realize so much that was going on. We never noticed. Goodbye to clocks ticking and mama's sunflowers, and food and coffee, and new iron dresses and hot baths, and sleeping and waking up. Oh, Earth, you're too wonderful for anybody to realize you. remember the day when we had a little choir? A little choir. And now, good heavens, now the progressive choir echoes throughout the Salt Lake Valley. So it is written. Thank you, choir, for great inspiration for this Thanksgiving. Good heavens, it's Thanksgiving yet again, and we want to continue with a couple of traditions, very important in the life of this church. For close to 10 years, we have a wonderful relationship. We refer to San Esteban in West Valley City as our sister church. And through all these many years, we take Thanksgiving as a time to realize that our neighbors are sometimes having great difficulties. And so we take a collection. There will be a basket at the Congregational Life Table. You're offering to help the families at San Esteban. They are roughly 98%, 99% undocumented workers, and their minister, Dr. Pablo Ramos, is just working wonders with that congregation and so appreciates our help every year at Thanksgiving. Also, another tradition that we carry forth, and it starts next Sunday, will be the Giving Tree, where we will have a tree out in our social hall, Elliott Hall. Dangling from the branches will be names of families that cannot produce for their children, for their family, a Christmas that we all dream of. And it's an opportunity to take a name, take a family from that tree, and just enjoy going shopping for a family that needs some help. And we get to gift wrap it real nice and return it here a couple of weeks later, and it's then given to our families in need. So please think about that. Just kind of tune in for next week. Speaking of all these holidays, the solstice will soon be upon us. The solstice always commands a very special place in the liturgical life of this congregation. And one of the things that makes the solace special, just one of the things, is the choir that's put together. So it will not be these splendid voices, but hopefully it will be a lot of your voices. And Holly, as for so many years, directs the Solstice Choir. If you are interested, it'll mean a rehearsal on Monday, the 26th, at 7 o'clock right here, and a couple of successive Mondays after that. And then she'll let you off the hook. But for now, please sign up again at the Congregational Life Table if you're interested in joining the Solstice Choir. It would be a great addition. It's a lot of fun, and I hope that works out for everyone. Tonight, a quick reminder: Jazz Vespers continues, and we're going to have a special tribute to none other than Joni Mitchell. And I've been lobbying to get a tribute for Joni Mitchell for about 10 years. Tonight is my night. Thank God I've got a chair reserved for me right up here. The offering will now gratefully be received, a chance to greet one another and wish each other a very fine good morning. Well, I said to Mary the other day that I hope our Thanksgiving turkey won't be as tough as Ruth Ginsburg. Nothing's that tough, thank goodness, nothing that tough. But then again, Perhaps the most important part of the holiday is not the food at the table, but the disposition that we bring to the table. Bertrand Russell, who I suppose never shared a Thanksgiving dinner since it's not part of his culture, nonetheless set the table, so to speak, by reminding us that it's a healthy thing now and then to put a question mark on the things you have. Put a question mark on the things you have. For me, placing a question mark on what I have helps me to understand gratitude more fully and deeply. It's all so tentative, isn't it? Catastrophes awaken our senses. While driving up Immigration Canyon, listening to NPR radio instead of my usual B.B. King Bluesville station, but I thought I'd take a risk and turn to NPR. I heard a story about the residents from Paradise, California, whose lives have been altered forever, and who will now look at Thanksgiving quite differently. In the hellish inferno that engulfed every square inch of paradise, suffering the tragic losses of so many lives and the loss of any possession that they've ever accumulated in their lifetimes. They feel now a new and profound gratitude for being taken in by family and friends, restoring a fundamental connection we ultimately should have with one another. Yet we are so seldom aware of that, until a question mark is placed on what we've perhaps regarded for too long with indifference. Now, my hunch is that in many cases, the family members who took on those who lost their homes in the fire may well be the same family members who were dreading this Thanksgiving dinner, having to come together with people of different political opinions. But this Thanksgiving will have an altogether different tone for them. Rather than discuss the midterm elections or Michelle Obama's disdain for the president in her new book, the conversation may well turn to the tender and personal side of life, where we acknowledge a new appreciation for the people who ultimately, bottom line, care for each other. Paradise is a town which has become now a metaphor. Paradise lost. Life is fragile. We are so vulnerable. It's all so unpredictable. The concept of paradise, let alone a paradise in which you can live forever, is truly an illusion. Now, in that treacherous winter of 1620, when the Pilgrims first arrived on American soil, they actually wound up digging 7 times the number of graves as they did building huts or some form of shelter for their families. And what's so remarkable about that utterly sad story of tragedy and impoverishment is that they still set aside a day of Thanksgiving by 1621. And that's the message so important for us to extract from the myth of new settlers and native people coming together at the feasting table and an exemplary show of human relations. It didn't really happen. Although there's tremendous value in believing that it could. So that scene that we hold so dear in our collective historical minds was pure myth created by the Unitarian writer and dynamo Sarah Josepha Hale. She grew up in a lovely environment in Newport, Rhode Island, and in 1813 married a lovely lawyer named David Hale, and together they had a lovely life until he died 9 years later, and she became a widow with 5 children. I wonder if she ever hung a question mark on all that she had. Well, she had some writing talent and was determined to engage in a literary career and moved to Boston with all 5 kids because, well, that's where Unitarians like to hang out. And soon she became editor of America's most influential women's magazine called The Ladies Magazine. They had no hashtag at that time. In her long life, she accumulated 36 volumes of essays, dramas, poetry, and cookbooks, but is best known for 2 things. Her poem, Mary Had a Little Lamb, and secondly, for making Thanksgiving a national holiday. So you may want to remind the non-Unitarians around your Thanksgiving table on Thursday, guess what, folks? If it wasn't for the Unitarians, we wouldn't be together. This is how the fable of Thanksgiving unfolded, given the literary talents of Sarah Josepha Hale. Our country at that time was as torn apart as we feel it today. The Civil War had exploded and families were painfully split apart in their loyalties and allegiances to the different sides. Hale applied relentless pressure on Abraham Lincoln to declare Thanksgiving a national holiday. Up until then, it had been celebrated randomly. Most of the South had never had a Thanksgiving, even long before the Civil War. But Hale eventually got to Abraham Lincoln with her story, underscore story, her story about the first Thanksgiving. And the way she talked about it, she was sure that it would implore families to sit down together, which would help bring a whole nation together. And she presented the concept that if the Pilgrims and Indians could tolerate each other's differences, why then we had a chance, because we had a model for how diverse people can coexist peacefully. So in 1863, Lincoln decreed Thanksgiving to be a national holiday. In his words, for all to sit down together at the feast of fat things. The first Thanksgiving was a creative product of Hale as a myth maker. A feast that included turkey, corn, cranberries, squash, pumpkin pie, a beautiful picture of ruffled pilgrims sitting with Indians as equals, indulging in the New World's cornucopia with gusto. All that was missing was a game of touch football. It was just ideal. This paradisiac accounting of the first Thanksgiving never happened. We have on record the words of Charles Woodman, a fine, upstanding Puritan minister who referred to the food as exceedingly filthy and most execrable, taken from the Latin meaning dangerous or cursed. In Hale's attempt at that Thanksgiving revisionism, with the best of intentions that would hopefully restore peace and harmony among people so hopelessly divided against each other. She glossed over the fact that the victuals laid upon that fictional Thanksgiving table comprised the food that Puritans would rather have avoided. In truth, Puritans migrated to New England with strict notions of food production and preparation. They demanded that flesh be domesticated, grain neatly planted, and fruits and vegetables cultivated in gardens and orchards. The English recoiled at the realization that the Indians hunted their game, grew their grain haphazardly, and foraged for fruits and vegetables. The English may have liked turkey, squash, and corn, but they were grossed out by the manner of acquiring these goods, calling it barbaric. In fact, there were allusions to Indian food preparation as the essence of savagery. So the real Thanksgiving story is about ungrateful pilgrims looking for fences and neat rows of grain. You know, where are the plows? Where's the team of oxen? Where's the yoke? For the Brits, hunting was actually more for sport. And when a farmer actually chased game to feed his family, he did so with tremendous shame. To resort to hunting was indicative of poor planning and laziness. And when the Indian men brought back from the woods elk, bear, possum, wild turkeys, the Puritans looked upon all of that as a perversion of agriculture. But the myth, like any myth, serves to guide us today more nobly. A myth is basically a foundational tale that offers a glimpse of what may be possible. Myths help shape social behavior. Mircea Eliade, the famous Romanian historian of religion, who in fact taught many of my Meadville Unitarian Seminary colleagues in the field of religious studies while he was based in Chicago for a while. Eliade argued that the foremost function of myth is to establish models of behavior. In that case, Sarah Josepha Hale should have gotten an A+ in myth-making. The myth must also provide a kernel of truth, a glimpse of possibility, and even a dash of hope. Hope in that models of behavior can inspire new ways, new forms of people interacting. That if, in fact, the Puritans could overcome their deeply held prejudices, but then there was the hope that we could sit down at the same table with anybody. Thanksgiving 2018 comes as another test for our divided nation, our present era of pure animus. Charles Blow, an African-American columnist for the New York Times and also a CNN commentator, two of the president's favorite media outlets, he has expressed so fittingly that the struggle for goodness and decency is eternal, not seasonal. American progress, he writes, has always been like a dance with a disagreeable partner, stumbling backwards as well as moving forwards. So Charles Blow recounts the all too familiar litany of American racism in its current iteration, as well as all the examples of misogyny and lies and bullying. But he remembers calling his mother. He called his mother when Trump was newly elected 2 years ago, and he was surprised that she was not nearly as distraught as he thought. His elderly black mom living in the South. She said to him, "We've been through worse." Her sense of history and heartbreak are long and fraught. So in the current firestorm of unflinching rhetoric that inflames the divisions among us, Charles Blow is taking his mother's approach by examining the history of how black people have positioned themselves during both Reconstruction and Jim Crow, when the political structures were largely and fiercely arrayed against them. And he discovered his mother was right. We've been through worse. But she will continue to set aside time for thanksgiving and gratitude for all the blessings that, well, maybe magically, continue to touch her life. Now, she knows there's no paradise except perhaps for her belief in an afterlife. But here on earth, we better learn to get along with each other before the human fabric unravels completely. So myths. Myths make reality a little easier to bear. I mean, I'll take that myth of the first Thanksgiving dinner. I'll take that any day over the real event where an impudent group of immigrants loathe the generosity of their hosts. And that's hardly a model of behavior that can benefit us culturally. We need to believe that different cultures, different ideologies, different sensibilities, different worldviews can find a way to come together and share their common humanity. A dinner might serve as a fine beginning. And during dinner, recount the gratitude for family and friends and neighbors who in time of catastrophe will rise over and over again, rise above differences, and they will feed you. They will actually care for you. The strength in myths is that they open up real insights about ourselves and our priorities. The forced migration out of Paradise, California, made those who escaped with their lives and those relatives who received them, made them look at life differently. Perhaps for the first time. It reminds me, it's so much like in that first winter of 1620, too many graves were dug. And so we have to step back and wonder, why? Why do we inflict so much hurt upon one another when it is always possible, isn't it? Always possible to harness a bit of love. There's this energy of love that's just there waiting for us to pluck. And so we need to ask, what's happened? Have we lost our love for humankind? Have we lost our love for all humanity? We may come laden with fundamental differences, to be sure, but ultimately, what really matters? Can't we find ways to bridge disagreements? Can't we find ways to heal our differences? Make that possible. And I think what is so key to a bridge, if we manage to even to broach that particular space, what's so important is understanding that we need to honestly express our gratitude. It sounds so simple, but think about it. I'm talking about expressions of gratitude, sincere gratitude, felt down to your toes. Because gratitude, if you think about it for a moment carefully, or even try to examine it in some way, we discover that gratitude has a strong moral component. It's not enough to merely acknowledge thanks, but gratitude must also imply a moral barometer. What does gratitude motivate you to do for others? So gratitude is a motivation. If you stop with feeling good, gratitude devolves into mere platitudes. However, expressing gratitude as a moral emotion that motivates reciprocity, then one becomes generous almost by default. Giving generously in material things or in matters of the heart can make the world better. And generosity will only keep being perpetuated. Or so myth tells us. The Thanksgiving myth shows a unique harmony and cooperation between Pilgrims and Native Americans because this is how it can be. This is how it should be. This is our model of human behavior, our model of human interactions at its best. So the unbearable anguish that Sarah Josepha Hale suffered through the divisions in our nation during the Civil War are replicated today. Perhaps we need a new myth to unite us. Perhaps we need to understand the moral implications of gratitude. Perhaps we need to acknowledge our thanks more than just one day a year. Perhaps we need to hang a question mark on everything that blesses our lives. May your Thanksgiving be a joyous event, even an opportunity to possibly turn things around with those who you find that they're so proximate to you, sitting across from the same table, breaking bread together. Show them your gratitude and see what happens. Dare to show generosity. It may, perhaps, be reciprocated. It works that way in mythic form. But once a vision is cast, everything becomes possible. Happy Thanksgiving. May we bring our Thanksgiving celebration to a close, turning our hymn books, please, to number 349. in these gray days and cool nights that always seem to visit us around Thanksgiving, may we rekindle our faltering hopes and insist again on a vision of our common humanity. May we keep faith with life, its mystery, its grace, its beauty. May we keep faith with the love that sustains us all. Amen.
David, thanks so much. You know you hold our gratitude, each and every one of us. So yeah, let us break for some coffee, conversation. Please remember, if it's possible, there's a basket of collection for donations for San Esteban, and hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving.